Go ahead. Okay. Oh.
Yes.
Is my mic on? Yeah, here we are. Okay, we're getting ready to go. We're getting ready to go. We're actually going to go an extra 2 minutes while we're just what some of the older people are still in the restaurants. We'll tell them when they get here that the older people, it took them longer to walk back. But so we're just going to wait 2 more minutes. Yeah, there's that young Nicole. She's here on time. Thank you, Nicole. And so we'll give them 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. I think Maxime went to shake a few hands too and say hello to a few people. So 2 minutes, we'll get going. Oh, Maxime's right here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, we got 2 minutes. Can you start the timer again for 2 minutes, David? Can you start the timer for 2 minutes and then we'll get going?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Thank you very much, everyone. Pam Henson, are you listening? Yeah, thanks, Pam. Thanks for picking Ron Harris up in Edmonton last night. I appreciate that. Thanks for bringing back my Freedom Talk sign. I was just going to call the police. Thank you very much. Do you want to use that? Okay. They won't let me hang up my Freedom Talk sign with green tape. I was watching an interview with Red Green one time, and the guy who was interviewing him said, "Is there anything you can't fix with duct tape?" And he said, "A jury." And I suppose that's true, but in any event, apparently you can't even hold up a sign with green tape. But there, does that look like it'll hold it up?
It'll hold one side.
That'll do. If it falls down, we'll blame the Liberals or Maxime, depending on who's talking at the time. So, okay, let's blame the Liberals. We all agree on that. Okay, folks, we've had a busy day. We've got a great closer for our evening, and we've got a lovely lady to introduce him. So, welcome Nadine Wellwood. She's going to welcome Maxime to our function and to Alberta. So, thank you, Nadine.
Thank you. Danny just asked me if I would introduce this wonderful man. And I'm like, let me think about that for a moment. Of course I would. I have had the pleasure now of getting to know Maxime since 2018. And when we first met, it's funny, when you talk about politicians, I called him the unicorn of politics. Because I went, this guy doesn't act like a politician, he doesn't talk like a politician, he adheres to his principles, he's got good policies. I was so excited. And I have to say, 6 years later, he has yet to disappoint me. So stick with that, Max. When you talk today about politics, I think one of the few things that we're missing, and probably the most important thing we're missing, is leadership. So many people want to manage the country, they want to manage the province, they don't want to lead it, because leading takes courage, and it takes bold action. And it is my great pleasure to introduce to you somebody who I personally believe has such tremendous integrity, has shown such bold action, and is a true leader. Welcome, please, the People's Party of Canada, Mr. Maxime Bernier.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't need it. I have one here. So, can you hear me well? I can hear myself. Yeah, okay. We are playing on it a little bit. Hi, everybody. So, yeah, I want to thank Danny for inviting me tonight. Sometimes I receive this call, and it's always for a good advice. And the last one, he said, I'm doing a conference. I don't want you to be on the screen and in Montreal. I want you to be here. And I said yes, and I'm very pleased to be here in Alberta. So, today, I would like to talk about two topics. And it's a little bit in line with the conference. Truth and tenacity. In politics, if you want to help people, you tell them the truth based on facts. If you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. You appeal to their emotions. And I can tell you, our country is governed by selfish establishment politicians, liberals, and fake conservatives who tell Canadians what they want to hear based on today's polls and focus group, not on what is in the best interest of our country. And there are times, like today, when a significant portion of the population, our fellow Canadians, there are times when public opinion is wrong, when it has been manipulated by the leftist media and the establishment. So, what can we do as people believing in our country and in ourselves? For us, the most important is to tell the truth. And if it's popular today, that's perfect. If it's not that popular, let's speak louder and being persistent. But for the liberals and the fake conservatives, the most important, it is not to be on the right side of the current issues, but on the popular side, regardless of facts, reality, or reason, just to have the support of the significant portion of the population. All they care about is power. They believe and promote wrong ideas, wrong public policies like mass immigration and radical multiculturalism that are undermining our economy, culture, and society. Wokeism that is destroying our Western values. Radical gender ideology that is eroding our youth's mental sanity. As we saw today, they are also promoting wrong policies like climate alarmism that is sabotaging our prosperity and freedoms. And what they are doing also, they are promoting the wrong ideas of federal imperialism that is undermining provincial autonomy and our national unity. And that's why you in Alberta, here you are speaking about sovereignty, independence, more control over the federal government. And I must say that you are right, because the federal government, conservative or liberals, they are not following our constitution. They are interfering in provincial jurisdictions, and that's why you have Quebecers in Quebec who think that the sovereignty is the solution. Actually, today, the PQ in Quebec is in advance in the polls. The next provincial election in Quebec will be in 2025, and yes, the PQ may win. And the new leader of the PQ in Quebec is not ashamed. He's speaking about the independence. And he said a vote for a PQ, it's a vote for the independence, and it's a vote for a referendum on the independence in the first year of my mandate. So maybe that means if the PQ wins the election in 2026, we may have a referendum on independence again in 2027. So, I'm a Quebecer, but I'm a Canadian. And I'm fighting for Quebec to stay in the country and for you to stay in the country. And I understand that you are mad. The best solution is to have a smaller government in Ottawa that will respect provincial autonomy. That's the most important for me. These establishment politicians are also promoting bad ideas like massive spending, deficit, and money printing that are destroying our economy. They are also promoting foreign wars, the war in Ukraine, that is threatening world peace and our security as a nation. Don't forget our neighbors, Russia, our other neighbors, the US, the Americans. What we must do as a country, we must promote peace and prosperity. That's part of our heritage. That's part of what we did in the past. And that's not what we are doing as a country right now. You have all these establishment political parties that are promoting war in Ukraine. And, about 500,000 of Ukrainians died. This country does not exist anymore. It's a shame. And I'm not pro-Russia. I'm not pro-Ukraine. I'm not pro-peace and prosperity. And that must be the right foreign policy for our country. You can count on the People's Party to fight for peace and prosperity. All these wrong ideas are sadly widely accepted today by the elites, the media, and a portion of the population. The People's Party is there to fight these wrong ideas and promote the good ones by telling the truth to our fellow citizens. We know that an idea that is not widely accepted does not mean that this idea is not just and true. And an idea does not become just and true because it is popular. Our ideas will become just and true because we are speaking about it with passion and conviction and determination. That's the big difference with us and all these establishment political parties. We are doing politics based on ideas with conviction. Sorry, we are not following the public opinion because, like I said before, we believe that the public opinion has been manipulated by the leftists. We are educating, informing the population, and the more we speak about our ideas, the more popular they will become. And that's the only way to win the battle of ideas. By doing that, by speaking about our ideas, we will gradually change the climate of opinion. And by the way, that's the only climate change I care about. When I was arrested, handcuffed, and put in jail for a non-crime after a political gathering in a park, fighting for our freedoms, the policeman asked me if I had something on me that could hurt him. I said no. Only my words, only my philosophy, only what I believe in. And if we want to win the battle of ideas, we must use our words as our weapon. We must speak out and tell the truth. What is the truth about mass immigration and radical multiculturalism? As many of you may know, I made my first speech on immigration in August 2019 in Mississauga, Ontario, to announce the People's Party policy on this topic before the election in 2019. A few weeks later, billboards paid by a person supporting us appeared across the country with my face on it and a slogan, "Say no to mass immigration." That made a lot of people mad. They freak out. Today, 5 years later, you can read about the impact of mass immigration on our society in the news almost every day. 5 years ago, however, I was the only politician in Canada who dared talk about it. It was still a completely taboo subject. If you've been following the federal politics, you know that I was called a racist, xenophobe, anti-Canadian by almost all the media and establishment politicians at that time. For decades now, there has been only one acceptable position among political elites and the intellectual: more, and always more immigration. The truth about open borders, immigration policy, and radical multiculturalism is that the Liberal government has increased the number of new permanent residents from an average of 250,000 a year during the last decades to a planned 500,000 next year, an increase of 100%. And only 25% of those immigrants are skilled economic immigrants. And we must add to the permanent residents 700,000 who represent the number of the temporary foreign workers, international students, and asylum seekers, fake or real. So last year, Canada opened its door to 1.2 million newcomers. That represents the entire population of Saskatchewan, a new Saskatchewan every year. 1.2 million newcomers annually is 2 times more than any Western country per capita. And in 2023, Canada's population increased by 3.2%, while the average population increase in OECD countries was 0.6%. And as you know, all that is due to mass immigration. Canada is the fastest growing country in the Western world. And already, 23% of our population was born outside of Canada, almost 1 in 4, and this is fast increasing. Our ratio is higher than the one in US and UK, where it's about 14%, and it's almost double of the one in France. And because of that, mass immigration is pushing up prices and making housing unaffordable for Canadians. In 2022, the OECD ranked Canada lowest among its 38 countries in terms of housing affordability. And Statistics Canada says rental inflation is running at 8.2% a year, nearly triple the consumer price index. Canada has the lowest number of houses per capita today than any G7 country. And the construction of houses cannot meet the rapidly growing demand from homes caused by mass immigration. For 1.2 million newcomers in 2023, we built only 240,000 homes, and we needed 700,000 just to meet the demand. And that's coming from the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporations. The Canadian Housing and Mortgage Corporation estimated that the country's supply of homes will be 3.5 million below the demand for homes in 2030. So what I'm telling you, we will need to triple the number of new homes we build each year only to meet the demand, which everybody agrees is not feasible, except one politician that is supposed to be a conservative, Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre wants more people to be able to build more houses, but it won't happen. You cannot do that in 1 year. The only solution to the housing crisis healthcare crisis, education crisis. It's to stop and end mass immigration. And single family houses with a nice backyard where you can raise children have become totally out of reach, in large part because of mass immigration. Yes, by pushing up housing prices, mass immigration discourages young couples to have children. And the collapsing of our birth rate is then used as a justification for even more mass immigration. This insane, vicious circle of self-destruction must end. Canadian women are now having an average of 1.3 children, which is far below the level of 2.1 children per woman necessary to maintain our population. We are told that we need more immigrants because of society. Our society is aging fast. The reality is newcomers are a bit younger on average than Canadians, but not enough to have a noticeable impact on the rate of aging. The Liberal government is making matters worse by increasing the number of parents and grandparents accepted under the family reunification program every year. For the Liberals, family reunification means not the immediate family, father, mother, and kids. That's the large family, your brothers, your sister, your uncle, your aunt, the large family. And they are doing that to gain seats in ridings where you have a majority of ethnic communities. And it's easy for them to pander and buy votes by opening our doors to all these immigrants. But as you may know now, we cannot be the welfare state of the planet. Government funding is limited, and we already fall short of caring for our own. We used to say we want fewer immigrants because we want to take care of them. We are not able to take care of them right now, and we are not able to take care of Canadians with that mass immigration. And mass immigration is increasing pressure on our dysfunctional healthcare system. You know that our emergency rooms are overrun. 6 million Canadians do not have, including myself, a family doctor. And wait lists for a family doctor are unacceptable long. Last year, about 7,000 people died while waiting for medical care here in Canada. Thousands of doctors and nurses were fired and left because of the crazy COVID vaccine mandate. Remember that. Unless we are able to bring in quickly, new doctors and nurses that are qualified, that are able to work here in Canada as a doctor and a nurse, our healthcare system will continue to deteriorate. But that's not only, mass immigration is not only having an impact on housing and having an impact on healthcare, that is having also an impact on our classroom, our education system. We have a lot of young immigrants that are going to school, but we don't have the capacity to integrate them, and it's another problem created by mass immigration. The economy. The impact of mass immigration on the economy, as you know, is huge. The business lobby was telling us for the last 10 years that they need more people because of lack of workers. And, you know, the solution for them was to open our borders to mass immigration. But after 9 years of mass immigration, the business lobby is still telling the government that they need more people. They need more people for them because they don't want to increase their offer, to increase salaries. You know, if you're a business and you're not able to find a worker, it's maybe because you're not offering a good salary. If you increase your salary, maybe you'll have some Canadians that will go and work for you. Now, big business is using the fast way, the easy way, with cheap laborers. And like that, everybody is poor. Canadians are not able to have a job at the salary that they must have. And at the same time, big business don't invest in more productivity. So the solution for the lack of labor is for big business to invest in increasing their productivity. But they're not doing that. And for us, you know, the society must not do everything to accommodate big businesses. That must be the opposite. And that's why we believe, and that's why I'm telling to all these big corporations, you know, if you want somebody to work for you, offer a good salary, and if you're not able to find a person, invest in more productivity with robotic and be sure that you'll be able to be more competitive. That's the solution of our lack of productivity. So, what is the impact of mass immigration? Yes, we have more people in our country. They are working, and at the same time, they're growing our gross domestic products. The economy is growing, but the gross domestic product by habitant per capita is going down. The pie is growing, but people who are coming here are growing faster than the pie, and so that's why we have a little piece of that pie. So we are poorer and poorer. The GDP per capita is going down. Actually, the GDP per capita today is the same one that we had 10 years ago. We are poor. The GDP per capita 10 years ago was $58,000. And this year, it is still $58,000. And you know it, that you are poor. We know with the inflation and mass immigration, it's the perfect recipe for us, for our standard of living that is going down. We need to have the courage to speak about that, and we need to open the political discussion on mass immigration in our country. So, I want to speak about also the impact of radical multiculturalism. Now, with mass immigration, we are telling newcomers, keep your culture, keep your traditions. You don't have to integrate into our society. And by the way, we will help you. We will give you subsidies to celebrate your culture. But every culture is not equal. And let's be politically incorrect. I will repeat, every culture is not equal. When you have people coming from the third world, you have culture coming from the third world. And so we must end that legislation and repeal that legislation about multiculturalism and telling people who want to come to our country, you need to celebrate our culture, our values, our way of life. And here in Canada, men and women are equal under the law. We have a Charter of Rights. And in our Constitution, if we read the preamble of our Constitution, it's written, this country has been built on the supremacy of God and the rule of law. And a nation must be based on a sense of belonging, of participating in a common national project, sharing the same values, being different from the rest of the world. It's only when these sentiments are widely shared that we can develop the trust and common understanding necessary for our institutions to function. Our country was almost torn apart because of the misunderstandings between Francophone Quebecers and the rest of the country. And many First Nations members feel alienated from Canadian society. So why would you want to emphasize cultural, religious, and ethnic differences by promoting multiculturalism, which has been one of the main causes of conflicts throughout human history? This is insane. The sense of community is disappearing, tribal conflicts are being imported, violence in the streets is becoming common in our big cities. Multiculturalism creates a fragmented, Balkanized society where ethnic tribes live side by side. It is also turning us into a low-trust society, when it's obvious that only a high level of trust between people interacting with each other guarantees a peaceful society with low crime, high mobility, and well-functioning institutions. Indeed, how can we have high trust when you are surrounded by people from countries and different cultures who codes and behavior cannot, that their code and their behavior and their culture, you cannot predict what they will do and understand what they want to do. We need to be able to trust each other. But because of mass immigration and multiculturalism, the trust is going down between us in Canada. That's another bad impact of multiculturalism and mass immigration. People must be able to conduct business by the rules that we know in this country. We need to be able to trust civil servants. We need to be able to trust our neighbors. But when you have people coming from another cultures, and when these people don't want to integrate our society, the trust between us is going down and down, and that's why you have violence, and that's why you have misunderstanding. So what we are doing by promoting multiculturalism is just something that is a failed policy. It failed in UK, in France, in Germany, and in Canada. But speaking against multiculturalism is still a taboo subject today. So I'm not scared. We will speak about it until we'll be able to change and to repeal that legislation in Canada. Some people are telling me, Maxime, you are supposed to be a libertarian, a free market guy, but you are abandoning your free markets ideas because I'm talking about these issues. But it's not true. I'm talking about immigration and multiculturalism, and it is in line with true free market ideas. Mass immigration, open borders, unvetted immigration, extreme multiculturalism, all of this has nothing to do with freedom. On the contrary, it is a very dangerous type of social engineering. It amounts to large-scale government intervention in society and culture. And frankly, let's stop being politically correct. We must recognize that not all values, not all social customs, not all cultures are equally valuable. Our distinct values are those of contemporary Western civilizations. They include democracy, individual rights, freedoms, freedom of religious belief, and freedom to criticize religion. Our distinct values are also include also equality before the law, equality between men and women, and equal treatment of all citizens regardless of their ethnicity, religions, or sexual orientation. That is the rule of law. But with wokeism in this country, that is not the case right now. You know, the leftists, try to divide us by groups, by race, by sexual orientations. But for me, I don't want to know your sexual orientation. I don't want to know, if you're white or black. If you're coming in this country from India or from China, and you decide to participate in our society and share our values, you are a Canadian. You are not an Hindu Canadian or a Chinese Canadian. No, you are a Canadian. So, I want to let you know that I'm not exaggerating when I accuse the liberals and the fake conservatives of putting Canada on a road to destruction. Because if you allowed these establishment politicians to continue to forcibly change the cultural character and social fabric of our country with mass immigration and extreme multiculturalism, Canada will eventually cease to exist as a distinct nation. We have to reverse this trend if we want to make sure that we and our children still have a country that is like the Canada we know, with its values and its unique identity intact 20 years from now. And the only way to do it is to tell the truth about open borders, mass immigration policy, and multiculturalism, and to be tenacious. When your ideas and values are under attack, you must choose. Choose to be quiet and politically correct, or choose to speak out and be true to yourself, true to your principles. In times like this, you have a duty. You have a duty to tell the truth, to tell what you believe to be just and true. To tell that to people around you. You have a duty to be tenacious and persistent in the defense of the truth. You have a duty not to hide your convictions and anything that you believe is necessary and true. Because you are the defenders of our civilization, and you should not be afraid to affirm it. How many times have you taken a step back and censored yourself when faced with bad ideas and false arguments from people you know or people who disparaged us? How many times have you allowed yourself to repeat something you know that is not true? What is the point of having the best ideas, the best solution for a better society, if you keep them to yourself because you are too afraid to displease others? You have an indestructible weapons, your ideas, your words, the truth. You must have the courage to speak your mind. It is the only way to counter all the nonsense and start that common sense revolution in our country. And it's never too early or too late to fight for what is right. It is fundamentally not only for having a better society, but more importantly, to keep our dignity. The person who tells the truth politely, gently, persistently is strong and free. And the more you tell the truth, the stronger you become, and it's contagious. That is what I want you to do, to stay true to yourself, to your ideas, to your convictions. If you do that, and we are doing that together, we will win the battle of ideas and we will live in a better society. So thank you very much, and stay strong and free. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxime. Yes, a well-deserved standing ovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, I'm sure you have time for some questions. Val Price is here. Val is a friend of yours. She's a friend of mine. She's a friend of all of us. She spoke at our first conference. And if I remember correctly, you concluded your speech with being born free is a gift from God, living free is a blessing, and dying free is a duty. And to me, that's basically the gist. It took you an hour to say that, but anyway, she was...
I like him.
Anyway, Colonel Redmond, go ahead. First question.
Maxime, I want to ask you a very personal question.
Yeah, I don't
Your
think
mic,
mic's
your
on
mic.
yet. Now we are.
Question, and if I may, a tiny story to start. I've been in a lot of scary places in my life. I've been in a lot of horrible places in my life because the career I chose, and I don't regret a second. But the scariest day of my life was in the middle of the Bosnian War. It was in the former republic. I had a battalion there and a whole bunch of soldiers. 15% of them were from Quebec. It was October. You remember what happened in October 1995. It was the last vote on separation. And we stayed up all night waiting to find out, my battalion and all my soldiers and I, sitting on the floor in a great big room, hundreds of us, if we were coming home to a Canada, in the middle of a civil war where people were being raped, murdered, burned, and killed all around us. And were we coming home to a civil war in Canada? Maxime, why did you choose Canada instead of Quebec? I know you have, and I'm so proud of it.
Thank you for asking. Because I strongly believe that, as a Quebecers and a Canadians, yes, I'm proud to be Quebecers, but I said in French, I think 15 years ago, that I was not proud to be a Quebecers in a speech because I was speaking about the equalization formula and the fact that Quebec it was a poor province, and it's still, if you look at the formula, a poor province. That's not true. And that's why I said I'm not proud to be a Canadian, to be a Quebecers when we received money from other provinces, and we must not. But yes, I'm proud to be Canadians, and I'm doing that fight with you. And I believe that we are the only hope for this country because we want to apply the Constitution as it is. And if you do that, the separatists in Quebec won't be popular. And the separatists in Alberta won't be popular. But I understand that you're fed up with that, and you want maybe to send a strong message to Ottawa that don't take us for granted. But I believe that all together, if we follow the Constitution, we're able to build a great country together, Francophone, Anglophone, and the First Nation. And we need to do that again together. So yes, I believe in this country. I want this country to be prosperous, and I'm working because I know that if we are successful, that will be a more prosperous and united country. Right now, when I said in my speech, the PQ is very popular in Quebec. Why? Just remember, when the PQ was popular, it was under Trudeau. You had Trudeau father and René Lévesque. And Trudeau was always interfering in provincial jurisdictions. Now you understand a little bit more that in Alberta right now. You're fed up with that. But at that time, Quebec was tired about it, and the separatist movement was very high in the polls. Now you have another Trudeau. And it's because of mass immigration that the PQ is popular in Quebec. Because the PQ, the leader of the PQ, the young leader of the PQ is speaking like me on immigration. And Quebecers want to preserve their culture and their language. So it's because of Trudeau and mass immigration that the PQ is popular. Let's solve it at the federal level, and all that will disappear. It will be good for Quebec, it will be good for Alberta, it will be good for the country. So that's why, and I strongly believe that our position on immigration at the next election will be a moratorium on immigration for a couple of years. That's the only solution to solve all these crises by mass immigration now. Thank you.
Thank you. Andre.
Hello. Having lived in Quebec for a while, it's a beautiful place, and it saddens me that politics comes between us. Anyway, I want to ask you, has Canada included the Palestinians or supporters of Hamas in their immigration and the numbers open to come to Canada, as Jordan and Egypt and other Asian Arab countries have refused them?
Just be clear, Hamas is a terrorist organization. When I said in my speech that we must welcome people who share our values, I don't want terrorists in this country. So we must do a screening. We must be able to have an interview with every one of them who want to come to Canada.
Are the Liberals including them? Like, is that part of who they're bringing into the country? Are you aware of it?
Aware of what, sorry?
Are they bringing Hamas people in right
Whether
now?
they're bringing them in as part of their refugee program?
Like I said, we have fake refugee and real refugees. We don't know right now because we don't do any screening. What is happening, I'll be honest with you, they had in Quebec the Roxham Road. As you know, I was saying we're not American, we cannot build a wall, we need to have a little fence over there, and telling them, stay where you are. We don't want you in Canada. I said that in 2018, 2019, and after 3 years, Trudeau decided to close that loophole, that Roxham Road in Quebec. But now we have a new Roxham Road that is the Toronto Airport and Montreal Airport. So what is happening, because Trudeau changed the regulation for a tourist visa. If you're coming from a third world country and you want to come to Canada, you need to have a tourist visa. And usually you go to the embassy and you show to our diplomats that you have enough money to come to Canada as a tourist, and you have enough money to spend, and enough money also to go back to your country. But Trudeau decided to change that. You don't have to prove that anymore. So our embassy are giving tourist visa. They are coming in Montreal and in Toronto, and when they are at the airport, they said, oh, I'm not a tourist anymore, I'm an asylum seekers, refugees. And we are accepting them. 15,000 of them since the beginning of this year, only in Montreal, at the Montreal airport. So when you're asking me, who are these people? I don't know. I want to know it.
Can I ask another question? Okay. Is the Liberal Party subsidizing the employment of immigrants, mainly the refugees that are showing up now, making it difficult for Canadians in getting jobs because the wages are being subsidized with these big corporations? And so that as some of my grandchildren are saying, they can't find summer jobs because they're finding a lot of the fast food places, et cetera, are only paying $7 an hour because the government's subsidizing the difference. Are you aware of that?
What is happening, actually, I was in PEI last weekend, and that's happening over there. They're fake international students that are coming here, and they're supposed to have a diploma, but it's a diploma from a faith school in Ontario, and the federal government is giving them the right to work. So, like, you know, all these fast food, like McDonald's, they have a lot of students, and so they are not increasing the wage. That's not the federal government who is subsidizing them. That's because there's a lot of people, a lot of young students, mostly foreign international students, and they are ready to work at a very cheap salary, and that's good for them, that's good for Tim Hortons, that's good for McDonald's. And yes, you're right, that's the challenge in PEI. I was there. I spoke with a lot of people, and they told me their kids have a real difficulty to find summer jobs. So if you're an international student, you must have a permit to study here, and after that, you must leave. If you don't leave, we will deport you. But that's not what's happening right now. The federal government is telling them, we will give you permanent residency. So what is the message that we are sending to the world? If you want to come to Canada and be a permanent resident, don't apply by the only road and to try to be a permanent resident. Just go on the other way and say that you're an international student or a temporary foreign workers, and after that, stay in Canada, and they will give you your permanent residency. So the federal government is looking right now at a program to all these international students that are illegally in our country now after their diploma. They are illegally in Canada. They want to give them a gift. When you're an illegal, you know, you must be deported. But no, for them, you don't respect our legislations, we will give you a gift. We will give you something that you like. We'll give you the permanent residency. That's destroying our immigration system, and that's why we have more and more people that are coming to our country. We need to stop that. We have legislation in our country, and that these legislation on immigrations must be respected.
I don't mean to not monopolize, but can I ask one more question?
There's a lady behind you. You can wait and ask a question after that, but we'll let the lady behind you ask a question. You can take a rest, and we'll let her ask a question. Then you can ask the next one. Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. So Maxime, you talked a little bit about the Constitution and about us getting back to respecting what it actually means and going back to the base of what it is. But you obviously here in Alberta, we feel like we need to go a step further and actually reopen that Constitution and create a fairer deal. You know, if you want to keep the independence movement quashed in this province, we need it completely changed and make this fair so that provinces are running as they were meant to be as independent nations within a broader country.
What you need you need to be taken seriously in Ottawa, and you are not. Sorry about that, but the Conservative, Pierre Poilievre, is taking your vote for granted. He won't speak about what you don't like, ending mass immigration, or, saying no to the Paris Accord, or, the equalization formula, changing that for being less generous. He won't speak about that because he knows that it is not popular outside Alberta, but it is popular in Alberta, but he has your vote for granted. So you need to be serious about that. And if you want to be serious about that, that's why I don't have any problem if you're speaking about separation. Just prove to Eastern Canada that you're serious. They don't believe you. Have an independent party at the provincial level, be what you have to do, and be serious about it. And Canada will, Eastern Canada will take note. They are not taking note right now. So I don't want you to be independent. I don't want Quebec to be independent. But I understand your frustration. I understand it. So that's why we are the only solution. If our program is not enforced in this country, we may lose this country in the next 5 to 10 years. That's why we believe in a radical decentralization. You want your police force? Have it. You want your pension plan? Have it. You want to not follow the Paris Accord? Do it. Every province must be sovereign in their own jurisdictions.
Nadine, just before I let you ask your question, I want to put in a plug for Max's radical decentralization. You actually spoke in Lloydminster for us about 3 or 4 years ago, and he talked about radical decentralization. And like he said, like the government right now was at $800 billion budget, or who knows what it is. But he said if you radically, and I mean, of course, it's absolutely out of control. But he said if you radically decentralize the federal government, and let's just say the federal budget was $100 billion, well, it really wouldn't matter what the heck they were doing because they wouldn't have all the darn money. And so I'd just like to say, when you get a minute sometime, go to our Freedom Talk website and watch his speech on radical decentralization. Some of my, dear federal conservative friends won't talk to me anymore because I talk to you, and I say, I don't talk to him because he's my friend, even though he's my friend. I talk to him because we have a group that's trying to talk about coming up with ideas that could fix our country, could make it better for our children and our grandchildren. And I said, he legitimately has ideas that will work for you. One of my friends called and said, well, if Maxime comes, we're not coming. And I said, and my friends aren't coming either. I said, well, do me a favor. Call him and tell him to go to hell. Because they don't want him to come here, but they won't come here and talk about it. He comes here, he has sensible solutions for difficult, really, really difficult problems. But you clearly, your solution would work in Quebec, it would work in Alberta. It's good for the whole country. So thanks for that. And anyway, Nadine, it's your turn.
Thank you.
Find all that also on the website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. It's all there. Okay.
I didn't know where to find that, Max. Thank you. I have a question because our premier has made some statements about 10 million people in this province in the next 20 years. And a new policy that's just been released is to do with, we are creating a new Alberta Advantage immigration program. And this program is going to see permanent residency pathway for police officers. So to touch on some of the things that you just talked about, some of my concerns with policies like these are we're bringing people in who have not integrated into our society with different values, different views, and now they're going to be policing or enforcing laws. And I struggle with trying to understand, where do these policies that politicians come up with, where do they come from?
Pandering, I'm sure that there's some writings where there's a big ethnic communities, and, somebody told establishment politicians, oh, we need more police men, we need more security in this country, and you can have a program for that, and all our people will apply for that, and you'll have more votes in this riding. So, but that's pandering. That's pandering, and that's why, our foreign policy right now and some policies like this one in this country are not based on the best interest of our country. Like the war in Ukraine, it's because we have, Ukrainians, Canadians that are here, and you say, oh, I want to have their support, and that they're living in the same riding, so that's important. So we need to change all that, and that's why we need a moratorium, Nadine, a real moratorium. So Alberta won't be able to do that because we won't have any new permanent resident in this country.
Can you now also explain the difference between the provincial ability to influence immigration and the federal? Because the other one I get from a lot of people is, well, that's the federal jurisdiction. But the provinces do have a significant amount of say in the immigration policy. Can you explain the differences?
Alberta can have a say like Quebec. What Quebec has on immigration, on different policies, I want you to have the same. So in Quebec, the Quebec government can say, we want this amount of permanent residents. They are controlling that. We want also, some foreign students. They are controlling that. We want temporary foreign workers. What Quebec does not control on immigration is the refugees. So that's why the Quebec government is asking Trudeau millions of dollars because of these 10 or 15,000 of fake refugees that are coming at the airport in Montreal, and they are staying in Quebec, and the government in Quebec says, no, I don't want refugees anymore, and because of that, you must give us compensation. So if Quebec is able to decide, and mostly it's because of the workforce, Quebec or Alberta know better what their industry needs. So that's why they can control, they have a say on the immigration. So why not Alberta? Yes, the only part that Quebec does not control is the refugees part.
And so there would be no reason why Alberta could not have the same control over our own immigration policies.
Yes, you're right, but also it would, if Alberta has the same agreement than Quebec signed an agreement 50 years ago about that. So if Alberta signed the same agreement, they will have the same thing. But the authority, the jurisdiction is at the federal level, like you said in the beginning. So if the federal government decide to have a moratorium on immigration, that will be it. The federal government will have the final decision. So you won't be able in Alberta or in Quebec to have, immigrations, because the federal government can say, I'm doing a moratorium and that's it. When the federal government will have to decide the amount of immigrants, that's the federal government, and after that, there's an agreement between provinces, and you can pick. Quebec said at the last provincial election, the PQ said 20,000 permanent residents. The Quebec Solidaire said 30,000, and they had a discussion about immigration and the number of permanent residents in Quebec. And so after that, the Quebec government had a discussion with Ottawa. We're going to take 50,000 permanent residents, and so, but the final decision on immigration is Ottawa. Ottawa will decide the number, and if we're doing a moratorium, you won't be able to have anybody.
Thank you, Nadine. Barry, are you in line? Yes, exactly. Go ahead. And then Ian, are you in line?
Mr. Bernier, I was wondering how you felt about Legault and his group in Quebec making Quebec a unilingual province, when in fact we are supposed to be a bilingual country.
Actually, Legault is doing that because, like I said, the PQ is gaining in the polls and the PQ is more popular. So Legault is not that popular right now. So he's thinking about the legislation and he's speaking a little bit about language. But Legault didn't do anything special up to now, but he's thinking about maybe reopening the legislation on the Bill 101 or other bills like that. But, we must understand that in Quebec, historically, who built that province? Anglophone and Francophone together. You're right about it. And that's what I said in my speech in 2010 in Quebec. For me, there's we must not have a fight between Anglophone and Francophone in Quebec. The Anglophone created that province with Francophone. And sometime at the provincial level, you want to put Anglophone and Francophone against each other. I'm not playing that game, and I won't play that game.
Go ahead, Ian.
Merci, Maxime. Thank you, Maxime. C'est cerca un fait accompli. It's almost an accomplished feat. Mr. Tufts brought up a week ago the Century Initiative, where 100 million Canadians is the edict of somebody, Desmarais, to have 100 million Canadians in Canada. Also, the Overshoot Index says the same thing. We have a capacity for 100 million. Is it possible to affect immigration in Alberta without a federal election?
Possible what?
Is it possible to stop immigration in Alberta without a federal election?
It would be very difficult because the number is settled by Ottawa, and Ottawa controls the borders. So you'll need a discussion at the federal level. And that's why we are bringing that discussion at the federal level as a political party. Yeah.
Go ahead. Everybody else?
Sorry, just to follow up. According to the Bank Act, Article 21, Section 4, if Parliament dissolves, we won't have a federal election. That's Bank Act Article 21.
Yeah, it can happen. Everything, everything can happen in politics. That's why I'm fighting. I know that we're going to be able to win, but everything can happen. We must be open to everything. We had these referendums in Quebec 2 times, and we may have another one in 2027. I don't want that, but it may happen. I want our people to live together, united, in prosperity. But that's not the case right now.
Andre, it's your turn again. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Lawrence. Were you in line? I think you were just. Did you have a question, Lawrence? No, Andre, go ahead.
Okay, my final question is, I'm in a communication at times with legal immigrants who are living in Canada, and I hear stories that to us as Canadians seem unbelievable by the people who are legal immigrants who run businesses and how they bring those immigrants into Canada and what their expectations are from them. And one example, I know 2 incidences where these people inform me, and they're quite desperate, where they had to borrow a large sum of money in the country they came from. One is India, one is the Philippines. And they had to pay that money to the business owner, who isn't a landed immigrant, pay that money in a large, and I'm talking $20,000 to $25,000, that they have to borrow in India or the Philippines, and they have to pay that to the owner of the business to sponsor them. And then once they're here, they're forced to, once they're given their paycheck every month, they have to give a kickback every month in cash. And they're just desperate trying to pay back these loans. Have you heard of this scam? And if so, can anything be done about these landed immigrants that are taking advantage of our immigration system?
I think that happened. I don't have any proof of that in the Indian community. I saw something on the social media about that, but I cannot tell you if it's true or not. I know that the Global Mail wrote some pieces about it a couple of weeks ago, and they're doing investigation in Toronto. That is happening supposedly in Toronto, but that is against our legislation. It's illegal to do that. Yeah.
Tex, go ahead.
My question is with regard to our judicial system. I think our judicial system has been totally destroyed by the political issues that have been going on in Ottawa. What are your comments about the judicial system in Canada, and what can we do about it to get judges back to being honest?
You have a point about that, and I'll tell you an anecdote to answer your question. A month ago, I received a call from one of our candidates in Manitoba. He asked me, Maxime, I received a COVID tickets during the COVID hysteria, and I'm ready to fight it. And I want you to be my witness. I said, okay, what is your argument? He said, Maxime, during that COVID hysteria, I went to a PPC rally in Manitoba, and I received the tickets because, that was illegal to be at some rallies. But the week after, I went to a Black Lives Matter rally in Manitoba, and police were there. They didn't give any tickets to anybody. But that protest was illegal also. So my argument will be it's a political repression, and that's why I don't want to pay that ticket. And I said, okay, yeah, you went to a Black Lives Matter rally, didn't have any tickets, and a political rally, you received a ticket. So that was his argument. And I was the witness over there. So, because it was my rally, but I just want to answer your question there. When you're a witness, what you have to do before talking to the judge, there's the clerk over there, and the clerk will say, can you decline your name? I said, yes. My name is Maxime Bernier. Can you spell your name? I said, yes. Maxime-Bernier. And can you tell me your pronouns? No. I look at the clerk. I was mad. And I said to her, can you see that I'm a man? And I was standing there. And she repeated again. And the judge was there. Can you tell me your pronouns? And I look at the judge at that time. And I said to the judge, I won't answer that crazy question. And the judge said, okay, sit down. But wokeism is everywhere. In our court, in our education system, everywhere. I'm telling you that anecdote just to tell you that, yes, in court in Manitoba, and that must be all across the country, it's the woke cult. So what can we do? We need to, before appointing a judge, every judge must be in front of a parliamentary commissions. And members of parliament must be able to ask questions to the judge. And now it's the prerogative of the prime minister, and that's it. There's no oversight by members of parliament. At least we must do that. They're doing that in the state. The Congress has a say. At least we must do that. We are not.
Well, thank you very much. I think, and one last question, if anybody has one. If not, oh yeah, go ahead, Wes. Come on. We're glad you're here, and we might as well ask you.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, that's right. We might as well ask you any questions we have. Doug, Deb, did you have too much? Doug, did you have too much Chinese food and you're dozing off here? Mostly, you always come to the mic and ask at least one question. We're counting on you. Anyway, go ahead, Wes.
Thank you for being here. With respect to immigration and the earlier discussion about everybody getting granted permanent residence status, is that revocable? Can that be taken away? In the U.S., in the presidential campaign, they're talking about, if Trump is successful, launching a big campaign to export, quote unquote, illegal aliens. We don't even use those words up here. Are we going to be able to do anything functionally similar to that?
Yes, actually, you can deport the illegals for sure. For an illegal is a person who doesn't have the permanent residency. So that's part of our legislation. If you are a permanent resident, you need to, that's a decision by the government in council. So, but because also it will go in court if you're doing that, you need to have a strong proof, and usually it's very rare that the government is doing that for a permanent resident. If you're a criminal or you lie when you came to Canada and you committed a crime outside the country and one in Canada, that's a good reason for you to lost your permanent residency, your citizenship, but it's very, very rare. The government usually is not doing that. But for real illegals, people who are here after a temporary permit and they are not leaving the country, they're illegals, and usually in the legislation, you can deport them, yes.
So crossing at Roxham Road was not considered an illegal act?
It was not, yeah, it's too bad it was not.
Thank you.
I thought you'd never come.
Well,
Yeah,
you
so,
called
yeah.
me, so I had to come. Hey, Max, it's good. Just a quick question here. I've not heard anything from the party on judicial appointments. And it's pretty clear on judicial appointments, and it's pretty clear to me and everybody else that all three sections of division of power are flawed. And it's been long my suggestion that we'd have something equivalent to the U.S. Senate advise and consent on these judicial appointments. I heard you say that tonight. Question I have for you is, can we quote you?
Sorry?
Can we quote that you are in agreement with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, we don't have, you know, if you go on our website, we have policies, one policy on what subject, it's 2 pages with, you know, we have the challenge and the description and the solution. On that, we don't have that, but what we will have for the next election on these kind of subject, maybe 1 paragraph, you know, our position on that is that, and, you know, it's all in line with our principles and our, you know, individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. And yes, actually, for the judge, that must be a process that we must do here in our country.
I just saw that as a missing piece in our policy platform.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear about it tonight.
Yeah, we can update our platform on that.
One last question. Go ahead. You're the lucky guy.
Thank you, Max. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I just wonder what is your view on what I perceive to be a part of the Canadian character, it seems, that we're almost apologetic about considering, when we think about immigration, we don't think like other nationalities that this is our country. If we decide to let people from other countries move to our country, they must do it on our terms, just what you've been talking about. But somehow, when I talk to people about this issue, I get the reaction from them like they almost feel bad about even thinking to say that we should stop anybody coming from anywhere in the world who wants to come to Canada, that we should even consider stopping them, like it's bad etiquette or something. I'm just what is in the Canadian mentality that makes so many people think this way?
Well, you know, like I said in my speech, we are good people and we don't want to displease anybody. So that's why I said in my speech, you know, we must speak about our convictions and don't be afraid. But sometimes you don't want to have a tough discussion with one of your friends. And but we need that, you know, in a strong and vibrant society. You have discussion like that respectfully. You must respect people, but you must be able to have that discussion. And sometimes Canadians don't want to go there and they're going to be silent. And but also you have the pressure coming from the media, the leftists, and you know, you can be called a racist, and you don't want that. I was called a racist in 2019, but it will be very difficult for the same people to call me a racist in 2025 at the next election, because, you know, I was right at that time, and we are even more right today. So now the Global Mail is writing about that, about mass immigration and the impact of mass immigration on our society. But 5 years ago, it was not the case. So political correctness is also a reason for. People are afraid, and the pressure coming from the media and the leftists. So that's why we must stand up and speak out. That's the only way to win the battle of ideas, like I said.
Thank you very much. One of the last, just before we close, one of the last speakers mentioned Donald Trump, and about 18 months ago we had a by-election in Fort McMurray, and we went up there to campaign with Paul Himon, and our daughter has 3 boys, and the youngest at the time was 5, and she called, the 2 oldest had a hockey tournament in 2 different places, so they were going there, so she called to see if we could keep the youngest boy, who was 5 at the time, so we said, yeah, we'll take him, but we're going to Lac La Biche door knocking. Because as long as you don't mind us taking him, we don't mind keeping him. And she said, well, as long as you bring him back Monday, it'll be fine by us. So anyway, we took him to Lac La Biche, and we were knocking on doors. And anyway, on the Monday or Tuesday, he got back. He's in play school, and they have that show and tell. So his story was, he was telling the kids, he said, well, I went with my grandparents, and we were handing out political papers, on the weekend. And the teacher said, oh, that's nice. He said, who were you campaigning for? He said, I think Donald Trump. So anyway, he failed kindergarten, but anyway, other than that, I think he'll be all right. So anyway, let's give Maxime a real warm round of applause. Thank you, Maxime.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Maxime. Yeah. He'll be here for a while if you want to ask a few questions. Thank you very much. I guess 9 o'clock tomorrow morning we'll be back at it again, everyone. But in the meantime, we can visit here. Anybody wants to come to our room for a little glass of wine, you're welcome to. We're in 916. The wine is cold and free. Exactly. Thank you, everyone.